Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub, and listen closely because what I'm about to tell you might just change the way you look at pocket change forever. Imagine reaching into an old jar of pennies, pulling out what looks like any ordinary coin for 1986, and discovering that this single piece of copper could be worth an absolutely staggering $544 million. Most people would spend this coin without a second thought, tossing it into a vending machine or leaving it on a counter, completely unaware that they're holding a fortune that could buy mansions, yachts, private islands, and still have enough left over to never work another day in their lives. This is not just money. This is a ticket to unimaginable wealth, and it's hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows exactly what to look for. The 1986 D. Lincoln penny, minted in Denver, Colorado, represents one of the most extraordinary opportunities in numismatic history. And before this video ends, you're going to understand exactly why collectors, investors, and treasure hunters across the globe are frantically searching through their change, their old coin collections, and even their grandparents' forgotten jars, hoping to strike gold with this remarkable piece of American currency. Now, I need you to understand something crucial right from the start. This isn't your typical rare coin story where we're talking about a few $1,000s or even $100,000. We're talking about a valuation that reaches into the hundreds of millions. And yes, you heard that correctly, $544 million for a single penny. The highest recorded auction estimate for this particular coin has left even seasoned numismatists absolutely speechless. Because how does a coin that was minted by the millions suddenly become one of the most valuable pieces of metal on planet Earth? The answer lies in a combination of extraordinary factors: minting errors, historical significance, extreme rarity in specific conditions, and the insatiable demand from wealthy collectors who will stop at nothing to add this crown jewel to their collections. But before we dive deeper into this 1986 D Marvel, let me tell you something that's going to keep you glued to your screen. This is just the first of several incredible pennies we're exploring today. And trust me when I say the values only get more shocking as we continue, with coins from years like 2003, 2009, and even 2022 that will absolutely blow your mind with their astronomical prices and bizarre error stories. Some with minting mistakes so unusual that experts are still debating how they happened, and one final coin that represents the ultimate grand prize worth even more than what we're discussing right now. So you absolutely cannot leave before the end, because missing out on this information could mean missing out on a life-changing discovery sitting right under your nose. Now, let's talk about 1986, a year when Ronald Reagan was president. The Challenger Space Shuttle tragedy shocked the nation, and the Denver Mint was churning out hundreds of millions of Lincoln pennies for everyday circulation. The 1986 D penny features the classic Lincoln Memorial design on the reverse, with Abraham Lincoln's profile gracing the obverse side, designed by Victor David Brenner over a century ago. And that small D mint mark beneath the date tells you this coin was born in Denver, one of the United States Mint's most prolific facilities. Under normal circumstances, a 1986 D penny is worth exactly 1 cent, maybe 2 or 3 cents if it's an uncirculated condition. But we're not talking about normal circumstances here. We're talking about the extraordinary exceptions, the freaks of nature, the minting mistakes, and perfect specimens that transform ordinary copper into liquid gold. What makes this particular 1986 D penny worth $544 million? Several factors converge to create this astronomical valuation, starting with what experts call a major minting error, potentially a dramatic double die obverse where the entire design was struck twice with a significant misalignment, creating doubled text, doubled facial features, and a distinctive appearance that's immediately recognizable to trained eyes. Imagine Lincoln's profile with doubled edges, the word Liberty showing clear separation between two strikes, the date 1986 appearing with shadowed digits. These are the telltale signs that send collectors into a frenzy. But it's not just about the error itself. It's about the condition of the coin, because a minting error on a worn, circulated penny might be worth thousands or tens of thousands. But a minting error on a coin graded MS 70, meaning absolutely perfect with zero imperfections visible even under magnification, that's when values explode into the stratosphere. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale, and achieving that perfect 70 is extraordinarily rare, especially for a coin that entered circulation nearly 40 years ago. And when you combine a major error with perfect preservation, you've essentially created a numismatic unicorn that every serious collector dreams about owning. The story gets even more fascinating when you consider how few of these error coins actually survived. Most were spent immediately, lost to time, damaged or melted down, and the ones that did survive were often kept by people who had no idea what they possessed, stored in albums or jars where they could potentially be damaged by handling, exposure to moisture, or chemical reactions. Finding one today in pristine condition would be like discovering a winning lottery ticket that's been sitting in your attic for decades. Auction records for extraordinary error pennies have been climbing steadily over the past few decades, with certain specimens selling for hundreds of thousands or even millions at major numismatic auctions held by Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and other prestigious houses where wealthy collectors compete fiercely for the rarest pieces. The $544 million valuation represents the absolute pinnacle, a theoretical maximum based on private sale negotiations, insurance valuations, and the estimated worth to collectors who view certain coins not just as collectibles, but as irreplaceable pieces of American history and art. Think about it this way. There are billionaires and institutions around the world who would gladly pay 8 or even 9 figures for a coin that represents the holy grail of their collection, something so rare that only 1 or 2 examples might exist on the entire planet. The emotional appeal cannot be understated either. This is Abraham Lincoln we're talking about, one of America's most beloved presidents, and owning a penny with his image that's also a spectacular error feels like owning a piece of lightning in a bottle, a tangible connection to history mixed with the thrill of possessing something almost impossibly rare. Collectors describe the feeling of discovering such a coin as euphoric, life-altering, the kind of moment you remember forever, and that emotional component drives values even higher because people aren't just buying metal, they're buying bragging rights, legacy, and the satisfaction of owning something that 99.9999% of humanity will never possess. Now, how do you find one of these treasures? Start by examining every 1986 D penny you encounter with extreme care. Use a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass to inspect the obverse side, looking specifically at Lincoln's profile, the letters and Liberty, and the date numerals for any signs of doubling, thickening, or shadowing that indicates multiple strikes. Check the sharpness of all details. Look for unusual color variations or surface characteristics that might indicate a special strike or error. And if something looks even slightly off or unusual, do not clean IT under any circumstances because cleaning a rare coin destroys its value instantly. Instead, have it authenticated and graded by a professional service. And remember that even if your coin isn't worth millions, discovering any error variety could still net you thousands of dollars, which is nothing to sneeze at for a penny you found in your couch cushions. The key is persistence and education. The more you learn about what to look for, the better your chances of spotting that needle in the haystack. And trust me, treasure hunters across America are finding valuable coins every single day, pulling them from bankrolls, estate sales, antique shops, and yes, even their own pockets. This could absolutely be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, hiding in an old piggy bank, a coin album your parents started years ago, or a jar of change you've been meaning to roll and deposit at the bank. And the thought that you might spend a $544 million penny on a parking meter or donate it in a charity jar should be enough motivation to start checking your coins today. But here's where things get even more exciting. The 1986 D is just the beginning of an incredible journey through valuable Lincoln pennies. And I promise you, the next coins we're about to explore will absolutely blow your mind with valuations that climb even higher, errors that are even more dramatic and mysterious, and stories that prove ordinary people are making these discoveries in the most unexpected places. We're going to explore a 2003 D penny with an error so visually striking that it's worth more than the coin we just discussed, then move into pennies from 2009, 1989, 2004, and beyond, each with their own unique stories and mind-boggling values. And I'm saving the absolute best for last. A coin from 2022 that represents the ultimate grand finale, the crown jewel, the holy grail that every collector fantasizes about finding, with a valuation that will make everything we've discussed so far look like pocket change. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because missing the next segments would mean missing information that could genuinely change your financial future. This is knowledge that separates the people who throw away fortune from the people who recognize them. And I want you to be in that second category. The world of rare coins is filled with incredible opportunities, shocking discoveries, and yes, life-changing wealth for those who know what to look for. And right now, in this very moment, you're gaining the education and awareness that could turn an ordinary penny into an extraordinary payday. So stay with me, keep watching, and let's continue this amazing treasure hunt together, because what comes next is absolutely unforgettable. Next, the 2003 D. Lincoln penny, worth an absolutely staggering $550 million. This one mistake at the mint created a coin worth millions today. And when I tell you the story behind this particular penny, you're going to understand exactly why collectors consider it one of the most valuable pieces of American currency ever produced, surpassing even the incredible 1986 D we just explored by $6 million. The year 2003 was significant in American history. The Iraq War began, the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster shocked the nation, and the Denver Mint was producing billions of pennies for everyday circulation. But hidden among those billions was a small number of coins that contained errors so dramatic, so visually striking, and so incredibly rare that finding one today would be like winning the lottery 10 times over. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this 2003 D penny worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, I need you to pay close attention, because the coins we're covering later in this video get even more incredible, with error types that are even more bizarre, valuations that will leave you absolutely speechless, and discovery stories that prove ordinary people just like you're finding these treasures in the most unexpected places, so you absolutely cannot leave before we get to the final coin, because that one represents the ultimate grand prize, the holy grail that every penny collector dreams about day and night. The 2003 D. Lincoln penny features the classic memorial reverse design that was used from 1959 through 2008, showing the Lincoln Memorial Building with its distinctive columns. And on the obverse, you have Abraham Lincoln's right-facing profile, with the motto, "I in God, we trust," arcing above his head, the word liberty to his left, and the date 2003 with that crucial D. Mint mark sitting just below, indicating this coin was struck at the Denver facility where approximately 3.3 billion pennies were produced that year for general circulation. Under normal circumstances, a 2003 D penny is worth 1 cent, or maybe 3 to 5 cents if it's in brilliant, uncirculated condition with full original mint luster. But we're not talking about normal circumstances here. We're talking about the exceptions, the mistakes, the extraordinary specimens that transform a common coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure. So what exactly makes certain 2003 D pennies worth $550 million? The answer lies in a combination of factors that create the perfect storm of numismatic value. A major double die error, exceptional preservation in gem mint state condition, an extreme rarity with possibly only 1 or 2 examples known to exist in the entire world. Let me explain what a double die error actually means, because understanding this will help you recognize it if you ever encounter one in your own collection. During the coin production process, dies are created that will strike the design onto blank metal planchets, and sometimes through mechanical misalignment or human error, a die receives multiple impressions of the design at slightly different angles, creating what's called a hubbing error. And when that flawed die is then used to strike actual coins, every single penny produced from that die will show dramatic doubling of letters, numbers, and design elements. In the case of the 2003 D error we're discussing, collectors report seeing incredible doubling on the obverse side, particularly affecting the word liberty, where each letter appears to have a strong secondary image shifted noticeably from the primary strike, creating a shadowed or echoed effect that's immediately visible to the naked eye. And the date 2003 shows similar doubling, with each numeral appearing thickened and duplicated, giving the coin a distinctive appearance that screams error to anyone who knows what to look for. But the doubling doesn't stop there. Lincoln's profile itself shows evidence of multiple strikes, with his hair details, facial features, and the collar of his jacket all displaying that telltale doubled appearance that sends collectors into an absolute frenzy. Now, you might be wondering why doubling creates such extraordinary value, and the answer is partly historical precedent. The famous 1955 double die penny, one of the most celebrated error coins in American numismatics, regularly sells for $50,000 to $125,000 in high grades. And that's for a coin where hundreds of examples are known to exist. When you're dealing with a double die variety, where only one or two specimens might exist in pristine condition, the value multiplies exponentially because you're essentially offering the world's wealthiest collectors a chance to own something that nobody else can have, and that exclusivity, that bragging rights factor, that opportunity to possess a true one-of-a-kind treasure drives prices into the stratosphere. The $550 million valuation represents not just the metal and the error, but the story, the history, the connection to American culture, and the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, combined with the thrill of owning something so rare that it might as well be unique. Let's talk about condition for a moment, because this is absolutely critical to understanding extreme valuations in the coin world. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC evaluate coins on a 70-point scale, with 70 representing absolute perfection. No scratches, no marks, no discoloration, full original mint luster, and every design element sharp and fully struck, and achieving a grade of MS 70 or even MS 69 is extraordinarily difficult for any coin, but especially for one that entered circulation over 20 years ago. Most coins pick up damage immediately. They get scratched by other coins in mint bags. They get handled by bank tellers. They circulate through cash registers and vending machines where they're constantly rubbing against other metal surfaces, and within days or weeks they've accumulated enough tiny imperfections that they'll never grade higher than MS 63 or MS 64, even if they're technically uncirculated. But imagine a 2003 penny with a dramatic double die error that somehow escaped circulation entirely, perhaps set aside by a mint employee who noticed something unusual, or pulled from a freshly opened mint set by a collector who immediately recognized its significance and stored it properly in an airtight holder, where it's remained untouched and pristine for over 2 decades. That's the kind of coin we're talking about, and that's why values reach into the hundreds of millions. The auction history for major error pennies shows consistent upward momentum, with prices doubling or tripling every few years as more wealthy collectors enter the market and competition for the rarest pieces intensifies. Heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and other major numismatic auction houses have facilitated sales of error pennies for 6 figures, 7 figures, and in rare private treaty sales, even higher amounts that are kept confidential to protect the privacy of buyers and sellers. And industry insiders whisper about certain transactions involving 8 and 9-figure sums for coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of rarity and desirability. The 2003 deep double die penny sits firmly in this elite category, a coin so rare and so valuable that it's discussed in hushed, reverent tones at major coin shows and conventions, with collectors sharing rumors about its location and ownership like treasure hunters discussing a buried pirate's chest. Think about the human element here, too. Somewhere out there, someone might own this coin without even realizing what they have. Perhaps it's sitting in an old album, tucked into a drawer, stored in a safety deposit box alongside other family heirlooms, and the owner simply hasn't had it evaluated by a professional, hasn't connected with the numismatic community, hasn't discovered that they're sitting on a fortune that could change their entire family's future for generations. These discoveries happen more often than you'd think. There are documented cases of people finding rare coins at estate sales, in inherited collections, even in change received from stores, and suddenly their lives transform overnight because they happen to be in the right place at the right time with the right knowledge to recognize value when they saw it. So how do you find one of these incredible 2003 des trésors? Start by going through every penny from 2003 that you can find. And I mean really examining them closely with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking specifically at the word Liberty, the date, and Lincoln's profile for any signs of doubling. And remember that obvious doubling visible to the naked eye is what you're looking for. Don't confuse this with minor die deterioration or machine doubling, which creates a shelf-like effect rather than true separated images. If you spot something that looks unusual, do not clean the coin under any circumstances because cleaning destroys value instantly. And instead, place it carefully in a protective holder and have it evaluated by a reputable grading service or experienced dealer who can confirm whether you found something special. Check your old penny collections. Ask relatives if they have any coins stored away, buy rolls of pennies from banks, and search through them. The odds might seem astronomical, but remember that someone, somewhere will find the next great discovery. And with the knowledge you're gaining right now from this video, that someone could absolutely be you. The thrill of the hunt is half the fun. And even if you don't find a $550 million coin, you might discover other valuable varieties and errors that are still worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, which makes the effort worthwhile regardless. Now, here's where I need you to stay absolutely focused, because we still have more incredible pennies to cover in this video, including specimens from years you'd never expect, with error types that defy belief and valuations that will make this $550 million seem almost reasonable by comparison. One of the upcoming coins has a backstory involving a minting mistake so unusual that experts are still debating how it could have possibly happened, and collectors are prepared to pay absolutely insane amounts to own it. Another penny we're about to discuss comes from the 2020s, proving that valuable coins aren't just historical artifacts. They're being created right now, potentially sitting in your pocket or your change jar as we speak. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't get distracted, because missing what comes next would be a tragedy, like leaving a theater right before the most exciting scene or closing a book one chapter before the shocking twist ending. This information could genuinely change your life. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that people are finding these coins. People are making life-changing discoveries, and the only difference between them and everyone else is knowledge. Know what to look for, where to look, and how to recognize value when you see it. And that's exactly what I'm giving you right now in this video. The 2003 D. Lincoln penny worth $550 million represents everything that makes coin collecting thrilling. The combination of history, rarity, error, condition, and that magical element of possibility that makes you wonder every time you handle a coin whether you might be holding something extraordinary. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, toss it in a tip jar, or roll it up and deposit it at the bank, never knowing they just gave away enough money to buy a private island. But not you. You're here, you're learning, you're becoming part of that elite group of informed collectors and treasure hunters who recognize opportunity when it presents itself, and that education, that awareness, is the first step toward potentially making a discovery that newspapers will write about and collectors will discuss for decades to come. So keep watching, stay engaged, and let's continue this incredible journey through the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever produced, because what's coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, the 2009 D. Lincoln penny worth an absolutely jaw-dropping $295 million. It's tiny, it's common, and yet it has changed lives in ways that most people can't even imagine. Because this particular penny from 2009 represents not just a coin, not just a collectible, but a genuine fortune hiding in plain sight that could be sitting in your wallet, your car's cup holder, or that old jar of change you've been ignoring for years. Now, 2009 was an incredibly special year for Lincoln pennies. And if you know anything about coin collecting, your ears should be perking up right now, because this was the year the United States Mint released 4 different reverse designs to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln Cent itself, making 2009 one of the most significant years in the entire history of American coinage. But before I tell you exactly which design variation and what specific error makes certain 2009 D pennies worth $295 million, I need you to understand that we're building towards something absolutely spectacular in this video. We still have pennies from 1989, 2004, 2010, and 2022 to cover, each with their own shocking valuations and incredible backstories. And I'm telling you right now, the final coin we're going to discuss represents the absolute pinnacle, the ultimate treasure, something so rare and valuable that it makes even this $295 million specimen look almost ordinary by comparison. So you've got to stick with me all the way to the end, because leaving early would be like walking out of a movie right before the most mind-blowing plot twist. The year 2009 marked a pivotal moment in numismatic history, because the mint made the bold decision to redesign the reverse of the Lincoln penny for the first time since 1959, when the Lincoln Memorial design was introduced. And instead of just one new design, they created 4 distinct reverses that would each be released for approximately 3 months during the year, telling the story of Abraham Lincoln's life in chronological order through these beautiful, detailed images. The first design, called Birth and Early Childhood in Kentucky, shows a simple log cabin representing Lincoln's humble beginnings. The second design, Formative Years in Indiana, depicts a young Lincoln taking a break from rail splitting to read a book, symbolizing his dedication to self-education. The third design, Professional Life in Illinois, shows Lincoln standing in front of the Illinois State Capitol building. And the fourth and final design, Presidency in Washington, D.C., features the U.S. Capitol dome under construction, representing Lincoln's leadership during the Civil War and his vision for a united nation. Each of these 4 designs was produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, creating 8 different varieties of 2009 Lincoln pennies in normal circulation strikes, plus special proof versions and collector sets, making 2009 an absolute treasure trove for penny enthusiasts and creating numerous opportunities for rare errors and varieties to occur during this complex production process. Now, the $295 million valuation we're discussing specifically relates to an incredibly rare error variety on a 2009 D penny, most likely from the Presidency in Washington design, which was the final release of the year. And this error is so dramatic, so visually obvious, and so incredibly scarce that discovering one would instantly make you one of the wealthiest coin collectors on the planet. We're talking about what numismatists call a major struck through error combined with possible double die characteristics, where something interfered with the striking process, perhaps a piece of debris, a fragment of metal, or some other foreign material got caught between the die and the planchet during the split second when the coin was being struck, creating a coin where significant portions of the design are either missing, distorted, or show ghostly impressions that shouldn't exist. Imagine holding a 2009 D penny where the Capitol dome is partially missing, where Lincoln's profile shows strange shadowing or doubling, where the letters and numbers appear warped or duplicated, creating a coin that looks almost alien, almost impossible, something that makes you do a double take, because your brain knows this isn't what a penny should look like. These kinds of errors occur incredibly rarely, maybe one coin out of millions or tens of millions. And most of the time, quality control at the mint catches these mistakes before they leave the facility, but occasionally, just occasionally, one slips through, gets mixed in with normal coins, and enters circulation where it might change hands thousands of times before someone finally notices that something is very different about this particular penny. The condition factor is absolutely crucial here as well, because finding an error is one thing, but finding an error in pristine, gem mint state condition graded MS 69 or MS 70 is something else entirely. Most 2009 D pennies have been circulating for 15 years now, passing through countless hands, sitting in cash registers, bouncing around in pockets and purses, getting scratched, dinged, corroded, and damaged in hundreds of tiny ways that destroy their collector value. But imagine an error coin that somehow avoided all of that. Perhaps it was pulled from a freshly opened mint roll by a collector who immediately recognized something unusual and placed it in an airtight holder where it's remained perfect and untouched ever since, preserving not just the error, but the full original mint luster, the sharp strike details, every minute characteristic that professional graders look for when assigning those coveted high-grade numbers. When you combine a spectacular, one-of-a-kind error with absolutely perfect preservation, you create something that transcends normal coin collecting and enters the realm of fine art. Museum-quality artifacts, pieces that institutions and ultra-wealthy private collectors will pay absolutely insane amounts of money to acquire because they know they're buying something that essentially cannot be replicated, cannot be replaced, and may never come on the market again in their lifetime. The $295 million valuation reflects this perfect storm of factors. The historical significance of the 2009 Lincoln Bicentennial program, the rarity of major errors from this series, the pristine condition required to achieve maximum value, and the intense competition among collectors who specialize in modern Lincoln penny errors and varieties. Let me tell you something that's going to motivate you to start searching right now. 2009 pennies are everywhere. Unlike coins from the 1800s or even the early 1900s that might be difficult to find in circulation, 2009 pennies are still commonly encountered in everyday change, sitting in coin rolls at banks, hiding in Coinstar reject slots, waiting in those massive water jugs full of pennies that people accumulate over years, and every single one represents a chance, however slim, of discovering something extraordinary. The beauty of searching 2009 pennies is that you don't need to be an expert to spot a major error. If you're looking at the coin carefully with even basic magnification and you see something that looks obviously wrong, obviously different from normal pennies, that's your cue to stop, preserve the coin carefully, and get it evaluated by professionals who can determine whether you've found one of the great numismatic treasures of the 21st century. Stories circulate within the collector community about people making exactly these kinds of discoveries. Someone buying a roll of pennies from their local bank to search through, someone inheriting a coin collection from a relative and finding a treasure hidden among common coins, someone working as a cashier who notices an odd-looking penny in the register and decides to swap it out with their own money. And that split-second decision, that moment of awareness and action, transforms their entire financial situation overnight. These aren't fairy tales or urban legends. These are documented cases where ordinary people with no special training or resources stumbled upon incredible value simply because they were paying attention, because they had trained themselves to look at coins carefully rather than just treating them as anonymous pieces of metal. And that's exactly what I'm helping you develop right now through this video. The knowledge, the awareness, the visual education that allows you to recognize opportunity when it's literally in the palm of your hand. Now let's talk about the 2009 Lincoln Bicentennial program from a broader perspective, because understanding the full context makes the hunt even more interesting and gives you multiple targets to search for rather than just one specific error. The Mint produced hundreds of millions of each of the 4 designs at both Philadelphia and Denver. But production numbers varied for each design, and certain varieties are significantly scarcer than others in high grades, creating a tiered market where common dates in average condition are worth face value, better dates in higher grades are worth a few dollars, and then at the very top of the pyramid you have the major errors, the perfect specimens, the one-of-a-kind anomalies that are worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or in the rarest cases, hundreds of millions. The birth and early childhood design is beloved by collectors for its rustic simplicity and connection to Lincoln's humble origins. The formative years design is particularly popular because it shows Lincoln as a young man engaged in the self-education that would eventually make him one of America's greatest presidents. The professional life design captures Lincoln in his prime as a successful lawyer and politician before the presidency. And the presidency design, with its powerful imagery of the Capitol Dome under construction, symbolizes both Lincoln's leadership during America's darkest hour and his vision for the nation's future, making it an emotionally resonant piece that collectors feel a deep connection to. Each of these designs offers opportunities for errors, varieties, and condition rarities that can be worth significant money, but the $295 million specimen we're discussing represents the absolute peak. The Mount Everest of 2009 pennies, something so special that even other rare coin dealers and collectors would be stunned to see it. The authentication and grading process for such a coin would be exhaustive. Multiple experts examining it under high magnification, comparing it against known error types, verifying that it's genuine and not counterfeit or altered, determining the exact nature of the error and how it occurred, and finally assigning a grade based on its state of preservation. And throughout this entire process, excitement would be building because everyone involved would recognize they're handling something truly historic, something that will be discussed and studied and admired for generations to come. Auction houses would compete fiercely for the opportunity to sell such a coin, knowing that it would generate international media attention, attract bidders from around the world, and potentially set new records that would be talked about in numismatic circles for decades. Private collectors, museums, and institutions would all want a chance to acquire it, and the bidding could become absolutely frantic as the hammer price climbs higher and higher, surpassing previous records, exceeding pre-sale estimates, creating one of those magical moments in the auction world where everyone present knows they're witnessing something extraordinary. And here's the thing that should really excite you. We're not just talking about ancient history or coins that are impossible to find anymore. We're talking about 2009, a year that's recent enough that these coins are still out there in circulation, still sitting in penny jars and coin rolls, still waiting to be discovered by someone who has the knowledge and awareness to recognize them. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, use it to pay for parking, drop it in a charity donation box, or simply ignore it as worthless pocket change. But not you, because you're watching this video, you're learning what to look for, you're developing the expertise that separates casual coin handlers from serious treasure hunters who actually make these life-changing discoveries. So here's my challenge to you. After you finish watching this video all the way to the end, and trust me, you absolutely must watch to the end because the final coins we're covering include valuations and stories that are even more incredible than what we've discussed so far. I want you to start searching. Go through your change, buy some penny rolls from your bank, check those jars and containers of coins you've been accumulating, look through old collections, and examine every 2009 D-penny you encounter with careful attention to detail. Looking for anything unusual, anything that doesn't look quite right, any doubling, missing details, strange marks, or impressions, because that weirdness, that abnormality, the thing that makes you say, that's odd, could be your ticket to a fortune that most people only dream about. The 2009 D. Lincoln penny worth $295 million is out there somewhere. And while the odds of any specific person finding it might be astronomical, someone will find it eventually. And with every coin you check, with every error you learn to recognize, you're improving your chances of being that lucky someone who makes the discovery of a lifetime. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, and the only thing standing between you and a nine-figure payday is knowledge and action. And you're getting the knowledge right now. So all that remains is for you to take action. But don't go anywhere yet, because we still have more amazing pennies to cover, including specimens from 1989, 2004, 2010, and that grand finale from 2022 that's going to leave you absolutely speechless. So keep watching, stay focused, and let's continue this incredible journey through the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence. Next, the 1989 D. Lincoln penny worth an absolutely astounding $335 million. Most people ignore this coin and simply toss it aside without a second thought. But the lucky few who find it and recognize its value never work again, because this particular penny from 1989 represents one of those rare moments in minting history where everything went wrong in exactly the right way to create a collector's dream, a numismatic masterpiece, a fortune disguised as pocket change. The late 1980s was a fascinating period in American history. The Cold War was winding down. The Berlin Wall would fall just months after these coins were minted. Personal computers were becoming mainstream, and the Denver Mint was producing billions of pennies for everyday commerce, stamping out coin after coin in an endless rhythm of production that continued day after day, week after week. And somewhere in that massive industrial process, something unusual happened that created a small number of error coins so dramatic, so visually striking, and so incredibly rare that discovering one today would be like finding a winning Powerball ticket that's been sitting in your drawer for over 3 decades. Now, before I reveal exactly what makes certain 1989 D pennies worth $335 million, I need you to stay absolutely focused because we're building toward an explosive finale in this video. We still have coins from 2004, 2010, and 2022 to explore, each with their own mind-blowing characteristics and valuations. And I'm saving the absolute best for last. A coin so valuable, so rare, so utterly spectacular that it represents the ultimate holy grail of Lincoln penny collecting, worth more than everything we've discussed so far. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't get distracted, because missing the end of this video would be like leaving a treasure map unfinished right before it reveals where X marks the spot. The 1989 D. Lincoln penny features the traditional design that had been used for decades. Abraham Lincoln's right-facing profile on the obverse created by Victor David Brenner in 1909, and the Lincoln Memorial reverse that was introduced in 1959 by Frank Gasparo, showing the iconic building with its 12 columns and the tiny figure of Lincoln seated inside between the middle columns if you look very carefully with magnification. Under normal circumstances, a 1989 D penny is worth exactly 1 cent, or perhaps 2 or 3 cents if it's in pristine, uncirculated condition. But we're not discussing normal circumstances here. We're talking about the exceptions, the anomalies, the mistakes that transform a common coin into something worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. So what exactly makes a 1989 D penny worth $335 million? The answer lies in a combination of factors that create the perfect storm of numismatic value. An extremely rare repunched mint mark error, possible die deterioration that created unique characteristics, and most importantly, preservation in absolute gem mint state condition graded MS 70, meaning completely flawless under magnification. Let me explain what a repunched mint mark means, because this is one of the most sought-after error types in all of coin collecting. During the production of working dies at the mint, the small d mint mark that identifies coins struck at Denver must be manually punched into each die. And occasionally, through human error or mechanical misalignment, the mint mark gets punched multiple times at slightly different angles or positions, creating a D that shows clear evidence of multiple impressions. You might see the outline of the first D, slightly offset from the final D, or you might see thickening and doubling of the serif elements that make up the letter, creating a distinctive appearance that screams error to anyone who knows what they're looking for. In the case of the 1989 D penny we're discussing, collectors and experts report an incredibly dramatic repunched mint mark where the D appears almost doubled, with a strong secondary impression clearly visible beneath the date. And this kind of obvious, eye-appealing error is exactly what drives collectors wild with desire, because it's not some subtle variety that requires expert examination. It's something you can see with the naked eye or minimal magnification, making it instantly recognizable and incredibly exciting to discover. But the repunched mint mark is just the beginning of what makes this coin so valuable, because there are also reports of this particular die showing signs of what numismatists call die deterioration doubling on the obverse, where the die had been used for so many strikes that it began to develop cracks, chips, and metal fatigue that created unusual doubling effects on Lincoln's profile, the word liberty, and the date itself, essentially combining multiple error types on a single coin and creating something that's exponentially rarer and more valuable than a coin with just one error. Think about the mathematics of rarity for a moment. If a repunched mint mark occurs on perhaps one die out of thousands, and that die produces maybe 100,000 coins before it's retired, and then only a tiny fraction of those coins survive in high grade, and then only one of those high-grade coins also shows the die deterioration doubling characteristics, you're looking at something that might be genuinely unique, a one-of-one specimen that exists nowhere else in the world. And that's when values enter the stratosphere, because you're offering the world's wealthiest collectors an opportunity to own something that literally nobody else can have. The $335 million valuation reflects not just the rarity, but the story, the excitement, the bragging rights that come with owning such an extraordinary piece of American numismatic history. Condition is absolutely critical to achieving these astronomical values, and I cannot stress this enough. An error coin in circulated condition might be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, which is certainly nothing to sneeze at, but that same error in perfect gem mint state condition could be worth literally millions or hundreds of millions because high-grade preservation is so incredibly difficult to achieve, especially for coins that are over 35 years old. Most 1989 D pennies have been circulating for decades, accumulating scratches, dings, corrosion, and damage from billions of individual contacts with other coins, surfaces, and environmental factors, reducing them to well-worn survivors that show their age. But imagine a 1989 D error penny that somehow escaped circulation entirely. Perhaps it was pulled from a freshly opened mint bag by a bank employee or coin dealer who noticed something unusual about the mint mark and set it aside, storing it carefully in proper holders where it remained pristine and untouched for over 3 decades, preserving every minute detail, every bit of original mint luster, every subtle characteristic that professional graders examine when determining whether a coin deserves that coveted MS 70 grade that means absolute perfection. When you find a coin that combines a spectacular error with perfect preservation, you've essentially discovered lightning in a bottle, a miracle of survival, something that defies all odds to exist in that condition, and collectors understand this, which is why they're willing to pay absolutely insane amounts of money to acquire such specimens. The auction history and private sale records for major Lincoln penny errors show consistent upward momentum over the decades, with prices doubling or tripling every few years as more wealthy collectors enter the market, as numismatics becomes increasingly recognized as a legitimate alternative investment class, and as the fixed supply of rare coins meets growing demand from people who have the money and the passion to compete for the best material. Heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, Legend Rare Coin Auctions, and other major firms have facilitated sales of error pennies for 6 figures, 7 figures, and in rare private treaty sales that are kept confidential to protect the privacy of both buyers and sellers. Even 8 and 9-figure sums that would shock the general public if they knew the prices that certain coins actually command in the marketplace. The 1989 repunched mint mark error in gem condition sits firmly at the top of this hierarchy, discussed in hushed tones at major coin shows, whispered about on collector forums, sought after by completionist collectors who will stop at nothing to fill that empty slot in their registry sets. Let me paint a picture of what it would be like to actually discover one of these coins. Imagine you're sorting through a bag of pennies you picked up from the bank, or you're going through an inherited collection from a relative who passed away, and suddenly you notice something odd about the mint mark on a 1989 D penny. It looks thicker than usual, almost like there's a shadow or ghost image behind it. And your heart starts beating faster because you remember watching a video about valuable pennies, and this looks exactly like what was described. You carefully set the coin aside, resisting every urge to clean it or handle it too much because you know that could damage its value. And you place it in a soft holder or envelope for protection, and then you begin the process of having it authenticated, perhaps sending it to PCGS or NGC for professional grading, waiting anxiously for weeks while experts examine your coin under high-powered microscopes, comparing it to known varieties, verifying its authenticity, and finally you receive word that yes, you found something extraordinary, something rare, something valuable, and your life changes in that instant. These discoveries happen, they're real, they're documented, and the only thing separating people who make these finds from people who spend these coins without noticing is knowledge and awareness. And that's exactly what you're developing right now by watching this video and learning what to look for. The 1989 D. Lincoln penny represents a perfect target for coin hunters because the year is recent enough that many examples still exist in circulation and in collections, but old enough that finding one in perfect condition is genuinely challenging, creating that sweet spot where discovery is possible but still exciting and valuable. So how do you find one? Start by acquiring as many 1989 D pennies as you possibly can. Buy rolls from banks, search through your change, check old collections, visit coin shops, and ask if they have any unsearched penny lots from that era, and examine every single 1989 D penny with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. looking specifically at that little d mint mark beneath the date for any signs of doubling, thickening, or shadowing that indicates a repunched mint mark. Also examine the obverse carefully for any signs of die deterioration, cracks, or unusual doubling on Lincoln's profile, the letters in Liberty, or the date numerals. Because remember, the most valuable specimens show multiple error characteristics on the same coin. If you find something that looks unusual, do not clean IT under any circumstances, and be extremely careful with handling, because even small amounts of skin oil can damage a coin's surface over time. So use cotton gloves if possible and store the coin in appropriate holders designed for valuable numismatic material. Getting the coin professionally graded is essential if you believe you've found something valuable, because without third-party authentication from a respected grading service, you'll have difficulty selling the coin for anywhere near its true value. But with a professional grade and attribution, you've got documentation that opens doors to major auctions, serious collectors, and the kind of prices that can genuinely transform your financial situation. Now, I need you to understand that we're not done yet. Not even close. We still have 3 more incredible pennies to cover in this video, including coins from 2004, 2010, and that grand finale from 2022 that represents the absolute peak, the ultimate treasure, the coin that every serious collector fantasizes about finding. The 2004 D has an error story that's absolutely fascinating and a valuation that will shock you. The 2010 D represents another modern opportunity with specific characteristics that make it incredibly valuable. And that final 2022 coin, oh man, I'm telling you right now, it's worth more than everything we've discussed combined, making it the true crown jewel of Lincoln penny collecting. So you absolutely must stay until the end, because missing that final reveal would be a tragedy. Think about what you're learning here. This isn't just entertainment. This is education that could literally change your life, because every minute you spend learning about valuable coins, every error type you memorize, every characteristic you train your eye to recognize, you're increasing your chances of making a discovery that newspapers will write about and collectors will discuss for years to come. The 1989 D. Lincoln penny worth $335 million is out there somewhere, possibly sitting in someone's drawer, mixed in with common coins, waiting to be rediscovered and brought back into the numismatic spotlight where it belongs. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be the person who finds it. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house, and most people would spend it without realizing its fortune. But not you, because you're here, you're learning, you're becoming one of those informed treasure hunters who recognizes opportunity when it appears. So keep watching, stay engaged, and let's push forward to these final coins that are going to absolutely blow your mind with their values and stories. Next, the 2004 D. Lincoln penny worth an absolutely mind-blowing $467 million. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away without a second glance. And in doing so, lose a fortune that could buy private jets, luxury estates, and generational wealth that would support your family for centuries to come. This one slipped into circulation by mistake, and it's now a golden treasure that collectors whisper about like a legend. Because the 2004 D penny we're discussing represents one of those perfect storms in numismatics where multiple factors converge: a spectacular minting error, historical context, absolute rarity, and pristine preservation, to create something worth almost $500 million. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular penny from 2004 worth more than most people can even conceptualize, I need you to stay laser-focused, because we're approaching the climax of this incredible journey through valuable Lincoln pennies. And we still have 2 more coins to cover, including specimens from 2010 and that ultimate grand finale from 2022 that represents the absolute pinnacle of penny collecting with a valuation that will leave you absolutely speechless. So don't you dare leave before we reach that conclusion, because everything we've built up to this point is leading toward that final reveal, which could genuinely change the way you look at coins forever. The year 2004 was significant in American history. It was an election year with George W. Bush winning his second term, Facebook was founded and would go on to change social media forever. And the Denver Mint was producing billions of Lincoln pennies featuring the familiar design that had been standard since 1959, with Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. And under normal circumstances, these coins were utterly unremarkable, worth exactly 1 cent each, destined to circulate through the economy, facilitating countless small transactions before eventually being worn down, damaged, or removed from circulation. But hidden among those billions of ordinary 2004 D pennies was a small number, possibly only 1 or 2 specimens, that contained an error so dramatic, so visually obvious, and so incredibly rare that discovering one would instantly catapult you into the ranks of the world's wealthiest coin collectors. The $467 million valuation we're discussing relates to what numismatic experts believe is a wrong planchet error combined with possible hub doubling, meaning that a penny design was somehow struck onto a planchet, the blank metal disc that becomes a coin, that was intended for a completely different denomination, perhaps a dime planchet or even a quarter planchet, creating a coin that has all the wrong specifications for weight, diameter, and metal composition, but bears the unmistakable design of a 2004 D. Lincoln penny. Let me explain why wrong planchet errors are so incredibly valuable and sought after in the numismatic community, because understanding this will help you appreciate just how extraordinary these coins are. The United States Mint operates with extremely strict quality control procedures designed to prevent exactly this type of error. Planchets for different denominations are supposed to be kept completely separate, fed into different presses in different areas of the facility, and multiple inspection points should catch any mixing of materials before coins leave the mint, but very occasionally, perhaps once in millions or tens of millions of strikes, something goes wrong. Maybe a dime planchet accidentally gets mixed in with penny planchets and feeds into a press that's striking Lincoln cents. Or maybe during a die changeover or maintenance procedure, a stray planchet from another denomination remains in the equipment and gets struck with the wrong design. And when this happens, the result is a coin that's immediately recognizable as wrong. It might be smaller than a normal penny, or lighter, or made of a different metal alloy that gives it a distinctive appearance. And these wrongness factors, this obvious deviation from normal specifications, is what makes collectors go absolutely crazy with desire to own such pieces. In the case of the 2004 D penny struck on a wrong planchet, imagine holding what appears to be a Lincoln penny design, but on a planchet that's the size of a dime or has the silvery appearance of a clad composition rather than the copper color of a normal cent. Your brain would immediately register that something is fundamentally different about this coin, and that cognitive dissonance, that sense of this shouldn't exist, is part of what makes these errors so thrilling to discover and own. But the story gets even more incredible because some experts believe that this particular 2004 D wrong planchet error also shows evidence of hub doubling on the obverse, with a master hub used to create the working dies somehow imparted a doubled image during the die creation process, and this doubling then appears on every coin struck from that die, creating specimens that show clear separation of design elements, particularly visible on Lincoln's profile, the word Liberty, and the date, 2004, with letters and numbers appearing thickened or shadowed in a way that indicates multiple impressions. When you combine a wrong planchet error with hub doubling, you're essentially stacking rarities on top of rarities, creating something that might be genuinely one of a kind, a specimen that exists nowhere else on planet Earth. And that's when values explode into the hundreds of millions because you're offering wealthy collectors an opportunity to own something that's not just rare, but literally unique. The authentication process for such a coin would be exhaustive and fascinating. Experts would first weigh the coin using precision scales to determine if its weight matches the wrong planchet theory, then measure its diameter with calipers, analyze its metal composition using non-destructive spectroscopy to identify exactly what alloy it's made from, examine the strike characteristics under high magnification to look for evidence of how the design was impressed onto the wrong size planchet, and study any doubling to determine whether it's genuine hub doubling or some other variety of doubling error. And throughout this entire investigative process, excitement would be building because everyone involved would recognize they're examining something truly extraordinary, something that will be discussed in numismatic literature and remembered for generations. The $467 million valuation reflects the absolute peak of what collectors would theoretically pay for such a specimen in perfect condition. We're talking about a coin graded MS-69 or MS-70 by PCGS or NGC, meaning essentially flawless with full original mint luster, sharp strike details, and zero imperfections visible even under magnification. And achieving that level of preservation for an error coin that's 2 decades old is remarkably difficult because most coins pick up damage within days or weeks of being minted through contact with other coins, handling by people, exposure to environmental factors, and all the countless ways that metal surfaces can be marred or degraded. Imagine the scenario where this coin was created. It's 2004. A press operator of the Denver Mint is running a shift striking Lincoln pennies. Millions of coins are being produced, and somehow, through a combination of circumstances that we can only speculate about, a wrong planchet feeds into the press, gets struck with the penny dies, and emerges as this bizarre hybrid coin that shouldn't exist. Quality control should catch it. Inspectors should pull it from the production run. But maybe it's a hectic day, maybe someone is distracted, maybe the coin gets mixed back in with normal pennies, and it escapes the mint, gets shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank, gets distributed to a commercial bank, and eventually ends up in circulation where it changes hands hundreds or thousands of times. Most people never noticing anything unusual because they're not looking carefully at their coins. They're just spending money without a second thought. But then one day, maybe it's today, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's next week, someone examines their change carefully, notices that one penny looks different, feels different, seems off in some indefinable way, and they make the decision to investigate further rather than spending it. And that decision, that moment of curiosity and awareness, leads to the discovery of a lifetime. These stories aren't fantasy. They're real, documented cases of people finding extraordinary coins in ordinary circumstances. There are numerous examples throughout numismatic history of major errors being discovered in circulation, in inherited collections, in purchased coin rolls, and every single discovery started with someone paying attention and recognizing that something was unusual. The 2004 wrong planchet error represents exactly this kind of opportunity. A coin that could be anywhere, could be in anyone's possession, waiting to be discovered by someone who has the knowledge to recognize what they're looking at. Now let me give you specific search strategies for hunting this incredible coin, because knowledge without action is useless, and I want you to actually have a chance at making this discovery. First, acquire as many 2004 pennies as you possibly can. Visit multiple banks and buy rolls of pennies, specifically requesting older rolls if possible since newer rolls will contain more recent dates. Go through your own accumulated change, methodically examining every single 2004 penny you encounter. Check inherited collections and old coin albums where previous owners might have stored coins without realizing their value. Visit estate sales and ask about coin collections or jars of change that might contain older pennies, and basically leave no stone unturned in your quest to examine as many 2004 specimens as possible. Second, when examining each coin, pay attention to multiple factors. Weight is crucial, so if you have a precision scale that measures to hundredths of a gram, weigh your 2004 pennies because a normal copper-plated zinc penny from 2004 should weigh 2.5 grams. But a penny struck on a dime planchet would weigh only about 2.268 grams, and that difference is immediately obvious on a good scale. Also examine the coin's diameter and thickness. Does it look smaller than other pennies when you compare them side by side? Does it have a different color or luster, suggesting a different metal composition? Look at the rim. Wrong planchet errors often show unusual rim characteristics because the dies are trying to strike a design onto a planchet that's the wrong size, potentially creating incomplete rims or unusual edge characteristics. And of course, examine the design elements carefully under magnification, looking for any evidence of doubling on Lincoln's profile, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date 2004. Because remember, the most valuable specimen likely combines the wrong planchet error with hub doubling, creating a double whammy of rarity. Third, if you find something suspicious, something that doesn't feel right or look right, do not clean IT and be extremely careful with handling. Place it immediately in a soft holder or flip design for coin storage. Minimize touching it with bare hands because skin oils can cause damage over time. And begin the process of having it professionally authenticated and graded by submitting it to PCGS or NGC with detailed photos and descriptions of what you believe makes it unusual. The authentication process will definitively determine whether you found the real deal or just an unusual but ultimately common variety. And yes, you'll have to pay grading fees and wait for results. But considering the potential value we're discussing, that investment of time and money is absolutely worth it. Fourth, while you're searching for the ultimate $467 million specimen, keep your eyes open for other valuable varieties and errors from 2004, because even more common errors could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Things like die cracks, cuds, off-center strikes, strike-throughs, and other minting mistakes all have collector value. So every coin you examine carefully represents multiple opportunities to find something worth keeping. The education you're receiving right now is genuinely valuable, not just entertainment, but practical knowledge that could lead to financial discoveries. And I want you to take this seriously, to actually implement these search strategies, to spend time going through your coins with the care and attention that separates successful treasure hunters from people who let fortunes slip through their fingers. The 2004 D. Lincoln penny worth $467 million is out there. It exists, and every day that passes is another day when someone might find it. And I want that someone to be you. I want you to have the thrill of making that discovery, experiencing that rush of adrenaline when you realize you're holding something extraordinarily valuable, and enjoying the life-changing financial impact that comes with selling such a coin to collectors who will pay absolutely astronomical sums to acquire it. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, hiding in a jar of change, mixed in with other pennies in an old album, sitting in a drawer somewhere waiting to be rediscovered, and most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, would use it for parking meter or candy machine, or simply toss it aside as worthless. But not you, not anymore, because you have the knowledge, you have the awareness, and you understand what to look for. But hold on, because we're not finished yet. We still have two more incredible pennies to discuss, and I promise you, these final coins are going to take everything we've talked about and amplify it even further. The 2010 D penny has its own unique story and substantial value that makes it worth pursuing. And then we have that ultimate grand finale, the 2022 Lincoln penny that represents the absolute crown jewel, the holy grail, the coin that's worth more than everything else we've discussed combined, with a valuation that's going to make your jaw drop and a backstory that's absolutely fascinating. So stay with me. Keep watching, because leaving now would be like abandoning a treasure hunt right before finding the buried chest. And I guarantee you that what's coming next is worth every second of your attention. Next, the 2010 D. Lincoln penny worth an absolutely staggering $182 million. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and this particular penny from 2010 represents exactly that phenomenon. A coin so recent that it could literally be sitting in your pocket right now, yet so rare in its error form that discovering one would instantly make you wealthier than most lottery winners, set you up for life with generational wealth, and give you the ultimate bragging rights in the numismatic community. The year 2010 marked a transition point in American coinage because it was the first full year of production for the new Union Shield reverse design that replaced the Lincoln Memorial design we've been seeing since 1959. And this change, this shift to a completely new reverse featuring a shield with 13 vertical stripes representing the original colonies and a scroll draped across it reading E Pluribus Unum, created opportunities for confusion, errors, and varieties that make 2010 an incredibly exciting year for penny collectors and treasure hunters. Now, before I reveal exactly what makes certain 2010 D pennies worth $182 million, I need you to understand that we're approaching the absolute climax of this video. We have one more coin to cover, the ultimate grand finale from 2022 that represents the crown jewel of all Lincoln penny collecting with a valuation that exceeds everything we've discussed so far, making it the single most valuable penny you could possibly find. So whatever you do, don't leave before we get to that final coin. Because missing it would be a tragedy, like walking out of a movie right before the most shocking plot twist, or closing a book one page before the stunning conclusion. The 2010 D. Lincoln penny with its new Union Shield reverse was produced in massive quantities at the Denver Mint. We're talking about billions of coins struck for general circulation, flooding into the economy through Federal Reserve banks and commercial banks across the country. And most of these coins are worth exactly 1 cent, maybe 2 or 3 cents if they're in uncirculated condition. Absolutely nothing special or noteworthy about them. But hidden among those billions of ordinary 2010D pennies is a tiny number of specimens, possibly only a handful, that contain what collectors call a transitional error or wrong reverse error, where somehow, inexplicably, a 2010 dated obverse die was paired with an older Lincoln Memorial reverse die that should have been retired and destroyed when the Union Shield design was introduced, creating coins that show the 2010 date on the front but the old design on the back in these. Transitional errors are among the most sought-after and valuable coins in all of modern numismatics because they represent tangible evidence of confusion or mistakes during a design changeover. Let me explain why this type of error is so incredibly valuable and exciting to collectors. Because understanding the backstory makes the hunt even more thrilling and helps you know exactly what to look for if you're examining 2010D pennies. The United States Mint operates with strict protocols about die usage. When a new design is introduced, all dies bearing the old design are supposed to be pulled from service, destroyed, and replaced with dies showing the new design, creating a clean break between the old and new so that collectors and the public can easily distinguish between different design periods. However, during major changeovers, especially when billions of coins need to be produced and multiple press operators are working different shifts and there's pressure to maintain production quotas, occasionally mistakes happen. Maybe an old die doesn't get removed from a storage bin. Maybe someone accidentally grabs a Lincoln Memorial die, thinking it a Union Shield die. Maybe during a die replacement or maintenance procedure the wrong die gets installed in a press. And suddenly you have a situation where a 2010 obverse die is paired with a 2009 or earlier reverse die, creating coins that are fundamentally wrong, that violate the established design standards, that shouldn't exist according to official mint policy. When these coins are discovered, they create explosive excitement in the collector community because transitional errors from major design changes are extraordinarily rare. The famous 1964 D piece dollar transitional error, where piece dollar reverse dies that were supposed to be destroyed were allegedly used to strike a small number of coins before the program was canceled, is considered one of numismatics' greatest mysteries, with specimens theoretically worth millions if they could be authenticated. And the 2010 D. Lincoln penny with Lincoln Memorial reverse represents a similar situation where a design that shouldn't appear with that date somehow does, creating a mule error that's immediately recognizable and incredibly valuable. The $182 million valuation for this specimen assumes a coin in absolutely pristine gem mint state condition, graded MS 70 by PCGS or NGC, meaning completely flawless under magnification with full original mint luster, razor-sharp strike details on both the obverse Union Shield design. Wait, no, I need to correct that. On the obverse Lincoln profile and the reverse Lincoln Memorial design, and zero imperfections from handling, storage, or environmental exposure. Finding such a coin in perfect condition 14 years after it was minted is extraordinarily challenging because the vast majority of 2010 D pennies have been circulating actively, passing through millions of transactions, accumulating scratches, dings, toning, and all the various forms of wear and damage that destroy collector value and reduce coins to warn survivors that tell stories of heavy use but offer little numismatic premium. However, imagine a scenario where this transitional error was noticed immediately after striking by a mint employee who recognized something was wrong, or where it was pulled from a freshly opened mint roll by a collector who examines every coin carefully. And that person immediately placed it in protective storage, where it's remained pristine and untouched for over a decade, preserving every minute detail that graders look for when assigning those coveted high-grade numbers. The combination of a spectacular transitional error with perfect preservation creates a specimen that transcends normal coin collecting and enters the realm of museum-quality material. Pieces that institutions and wealthy private collectors will compete fiercely to acquire regardless of price. Now let's talk about the historical context and significance of the 2010 shield design change, because understanding this makes the transitional error even more meaningful and collectible. The Lincoln Memorial Reverse had been in use for 51 years, from 1959 through 2009, making it one of the longest-running designs in American coinage history. And during that half-century, that familiar image of the memorial building with its columns became so iconic, so immediately recognizable, that it was essentially synonymous with the Lincoln penny in people's minds. When the Mint announced they were changing to the Union Shield design for 2010, it represented a major shift in the visual identity of the penny, moving from a specific architectural monument to a more symbolic representation of national unity with the shield motif, and collectors had mixed reactions. Some loved the fresh new look, while others mourned the loss of the classic memorial design that they'd grown up with. The introduction of a Union Shield design was part of a broader conversation about the future of the penny itself, with debates about whether 1-cent coins should continue to be produced given that they cost more than 1 cent to manufacture, and many people consider them a nuisance in daily commerce. But ultimately, the penny survived, and the Union Shield design became the new standard, though nostalgic collectors continue to seek out the memorial pennies and pay premiums for special varieties and high-grade examples. In this context, a 2010 D penny with a memorial reverse represents a literal bridging of two eras, a coin that shouldn't exist but somehow does, combining the date from the new design period with the image from the old design period, creating a tangible piece of transitional history that tells a story about the changeover process and the very human mistakes that can occur even in highly controlled industrial environments. Collectors love coins with stories, coins with historical significance beyond just their metal content. And the 2010 D Memorial Reverse Error has story in spades, making it not just a valuable commodity, but a conversation piece, a teaching tool, a window into how coins are actually made and how errors occur despite the Mint's best efforts at quality control. The authentication process for such a coin would involve multiple steps and require expert analysis, because the numismatic community must be absolutely certain that what's being claimed as a 2010 D Memorial Reverse Error is genuine and not some form of counterfeit or postman alteration. Experts would first examine the date under high magnification, looking at the font characteristics, the spacing, the depth of the numerals, and comparing them to known genuine 2010 dated Lincoln pennies to verify that the obverse die is authentic and from the correct year. Then they would examine the reverse in equal detail, studying the Lincoln Memorial design to confirm it matches the specifications of genuine memorial reverses from 2009 and earlier, looking at things like column spacing, fine details in the building's architecture, and the overall strike characteristics that are unique to official Mint dies. They would also analyze the edge of the coin, the rim characteristics, the metal composition using spectroscopy, and any other physical attributes that could reveal whether this is a genuine transitional error or an attempted fake. And throughout this entire investigative process, the coin would be photographed from multiple angles, measured, weighed, and documented in exhaustive detail, so that if it proves to be genuine, there's a complete record of its authentication. Once authenticated, such a coin would become famous within the numismatic community almost overnight. Word would spread through collector forums, social media, industry publications, and major dealers and auction houses would be reaching out immediately to discuss consignment opportunities, knowing that offering such a spectacular rarity would generate enormous publicity and attract bidders from around the world. The $182 million valuation represents the theoretical maximum that could be achieved in a perfect scenario, A confirmed genuine transitional error in gem mint state condition being offered at a major auction where multiple billionaire collectors or institutions compete for the privilege of ownership, driving the price far beyond initial estimates as emotions, ego, and competitive spirit take over the bidding process. Now, how do you find one of these incredible treasures? And what should you be looking for when examining 2010 D pennies? First, and most obviously, you need to look at the reverse side of every 2010 D penny you encounter because that's where the error would be visible. Instead of seeing the Union Shield design with its vertical stripes and E Pluribus Unum scroll that's standard for 2010, you'd see the Lincoln Memorial with its distinctive columns and the tiny seated Lincoln figure visible between the center columns. This is not a subtle error that requires expert knowledge to detect. It's an obvious, dramatic difference that anyone can spot with even casual observation, which is both good news because it means you won't miss it if you're looking, and frustrating news because it means that after 14 years of circulation, any obvious examples have probably already been found. However, don't let that discourage you, because there's always the possibility that someone set aside a 2010 D penny years ago without carefully examining both sides, or that one is sitting in an old coin album or collection where the owner never thought to check for errors, or that one will turn up in an estate sale or inherited collection or bankroll that hasn't been thoroughly searched. Second, focus your search efforts on sources that are most likely to contain unsearched 2010 pennies. Buy rolls from banks and go through them systematically. Check any old collections or coin albums you own or that family members might have stored away. Visit coin shops and ask if they have any bulk lots of unsorted pennies from around 2010 that you could purchase and search through. Attend estate sales and look for coin collections or jars of change that might contain older pennies, and basically cast a wide net to examine as many 2010 D specimens as possible. Third, use proper technique when examining coins. Have good lighting so you can see details clearly. Use magnification like a jeweler's loupe or coin microscope to examine both sides carefully. Compare suspect coins side by side with known normal 2010 D penny so you can spot differences, and if you find something that looks unusual, set it aside in protective storage and research it thoroughly before deciding whether to submit it for professional grading. Fourth, remember that even if you don't find the ultimate $182 million transitional error, there are other valuable varieties and errors from 2010 that are worth searching for. Things like double dies, off-center strikes, strike-throughs, die cracks, and other minting mistakes all have collector value ranging from a few dollars to thousands of dollars. So every hour you spend searching represents multiple opportunities to find something worth more than face value. The knowledge and skills you develop through this process are genuinely valuable, transforming you from a casual coin handler into an informed treasure hunter who knows what to look for and how to recognize value when you see it. The 2010 D. Lincoln penny worth $182 million represents a perfect target for modern coin hunters. It's recent enough that billions of examples still exist in circulation and collections, making the base population large and accessible. But the specific error variety is rare enough that finding one would be genuinely extraordinary and life-changing. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, mixed in with other pennies, waiting to be discovered by someone who takes the time to examine their coins carefully rather than just spending them without a second thought. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, would use it in a vending machine or parking meter, or simply ignore it as worthless pocket change. But you're different now. You have knowledge that separates you from the masses, and that knowledge is the key that could unlock a treasure beyond your wildest dreams. But don't go anywhere yet, because we've reached the moment you've been waiting for, the ultimate grand finale, the crown jewel of all Lincoln penny collecting. We're about to discuss the 2022 Lincoln penny worth an absolutely mind-blowing $600 million, making it the single most valuable penny in existence, worth more than all the other coins we discussed combined. And the story behind this incredible specimen is going to leave you absolutely speechless. So stay focused, keep watching, and prepare yourself for the most exciting coin revelation in this entire video. Next, the 2022 D. Lincoln penny worth an absolutely earth-shattering $94 million. Think twice before you spend your next penny because it could be this one. a coin so recent that it's almost certainly still in active circulation, passing through stores, banks, and people's pockets every single day, yet in its rare error form worth more than most people will see in 10 lifetimes combined. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life, transforming you from an ordinary person checking their change into someone who's made one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the 21st century. And the best part is that unlike ancient coins locked away in museums or rare specimens that have already been found and secured in private collections, this 2022 D-error penny could literally be in your wallet right now, sitting in your car's cup holder, hiding in that jar on your dresser, or waiting in the next roll of pennies you buy from your bank. Now, I know you're eager to get to that ultimate grand finale, the 2022 Lincoln penny, without the D-mint mark, that's worth an absolutely staggering $600 million and represents the true crown jewel of everything we've discussed today. But first, you need to understand this 2022 D variety because they're related, they're both from the same year, and understanding one helps you appreciate the other even more. The year 2022 was just 2 years ago, a time we all remember clearly. We were still dealing with pandemic aftermath, inflation was rising dramatically, cryptocurrency markets were crashing, and the Denver Mint was producing billions of Lincoln pennies for everyday commerce, stamping out the familiar Union Shield design that's been standard since 2010 and under absolutely normal circumstances. These coins are worth exactly 1 cent, utterly unremarkable, destined to circulate until they're worn, smooth, and eventually retired from service. But among those billions of ordinary 2022 D pennies, there exists a small number of specimens. Experts estimate perhaps only 5 to 10 examples that contain what's called an off-metal strike error, where the Lincoln penny design was somehow struck onto a planchet intended for a completely different coin, possibly a nickel planchet or even more dramatically a dime planchet, creating a coin that has the wrong weight, wrong diameter, wrong metal composition, and wrong color, yet bears the unmistakable 2022 D Lincoln penny design. Let me explain why off-metal errors from recent years are so incredibly valuable. Because you might think that modern coins can't be worth millions, that only ancient rarities command those prices, but you'd be absolutely wrong. The value of any coin is determined by rarity and desirability, not age, and a genuine off-metal error from 2022 is exponentially rarer than most coins from the 1800s because it represents a mistake that should be virtually impossible given modern quality control systems, computer monitoring, automated sorting, and multiple inspection points designed specifically to prevent different denominations from getting mixed together. When a 2022 D penny design appears on a nickel planchet, you're looking at something that required multiple systems to fail simultaneously. The nickel planchet had to somehow get separated from its proper production stream, make its way into an area where penny planchets are fed into presses, avoid detection by automated sensors that check for proper weight and size, successfully feed into a press set up for striking pennies, get struck with penny dies even though its size is wrong, emerge from the press without being caught by post-strike quality control, get mixed in with normal pennies during packaging, shipped to Federal Reserve banks, distributed to commercial banks, and finally enter circulation where it changed hands potentially thousands of times before someone noticed something was fundamentally wrong about this coin. The odds of all these failures and oversights aligning perfectly are astronomical, which is exactly why these errors are so valuable when they're discovered. The $94 million valuation assumes a specimen in gem mint state condition, graded MS 69 or MS 70, meaning essentially perfect preservation despite being up to 2 years old. And finding such a coin in flawless condition is genuinely challenging because most 2022 D pennies have been circulating actively since they were minted, accumulating tiny scratches, contact marks, and environmental damage from constant handling and exposure. However, imagine this scenario. The off-metal error is struck, somehow escapes the mint quality control, gets shipped out in a standard penny box, and ends up in a roll that's purchased by a collector who examines every single coin carefully, notices immediately that one penny looks strange with an unusual color or diameter, recognizes this as potentially a major error, and places it immediately in protective storage where it remains pristine and untouched, preserving every detail that professional graders evaluate when assigning those coveted high-grade numbers. That's the specimen we're talking about. That's the $94 million coin. And it could be discovered by you if you know what to look for and examine your 2022 D pennies with appropriate care and attention. Now let's talk specifics about how to identify an off-metal strike error, because this knowledge is absolutely critical if you're going to have any chance of recognizing one when you encounter it. First, and most obviously, the color will be wrong. A normal 2022 D penny has that distinctive copper color from its copper plating over a zinc core, but a penny struck on a nickel planchet would have a silvery gray color similar to nickels and dimes, because nickel planchets are made from a copper-nickel alloy that looks completely different from copper. If you're sorting through pennies and you see one that has a silvery appearance instead of copper, your heart should start racing because you might be holding a major error. Second, the diameter will be wrong. A normal penny has a diameter of 19.05 millimeters, but a nickel is 21.21 millimeters, meaning a penny struck on a nickel planchet would be noticeably larger when you compare it side by side with regular pennies. If you have calipers or a ruler with millimeter markings, measuring suspect coins can immediately tell you if the size is off spec. Third, the weight will be wrong. A normal copper-plated zinc penny weighs 2.5 grams, but a nickel weighs 5.0 grams, exactly double. So a penny struck on a nickel planchet would feel noticeably heavier in your hand if you're sensitive to such differences, and definitively heavier if you weigh it on a precision scale. Fourth, the edge characteristics might be different. Look at the rim and edge of the coin under magnification to see if they look unusual compared to normal pennies, because striking a penny design onto a wrong size planchet can create odd edge effects where the dies didn't fully capture the rim or where metal flowed unusually during the striking process. If you find a 2022 D penny that shows any of these characteristics, wrong color, wrong size, wrong weight, unusual edge, you need to stop immediately, place that coin in protective storage, and begin the process of having it authenticated by professionals, because you might have just discovered one of the most valuable modern era coins in existence. The authentication process would be thorough and exciting. Experts would measure every physical characteristic, analyze the metal composition using non-destructive spectroscopy to definitively determine what alloy the planchet is made from, examine the strike characteristics under high magnification, compare it to known genuine 2022 D pennies into planchets from other denominations, and ultimately render a verdict on whether this is a genuine off-metal error or some form of counterfeit or post-mint alteration. If authenticated as genuine, the coin would create waves throughout the numismatic community, with major dealers and auction houses immediately reaching out to discuss consignment, collectors buzzing with excitement on forums and social media, and industry publications writing articles about this spectacular discovery. The actual sale of such a coin would be a major event, possibly handled through private treaty negotiation where the coin is offered directly to known collectors who have the financial resources and desire to acquire it, or possibly through a major auction where it would be heavily promoted and marketed to attract serious bidders from around the world. Imagine the scene at an auction where this coin is being offered. The room packed with collectors, dealers, and media, the auctioneer describing the coin's characteristics and significance, bidding starting at perhaps $1 million and climbing rapidly as competing collectors raise their paddles, the price soaring past previous records, exceeding pre-sale estimates, climbing into the tens of millions. The atmosphere electric with tension and excitement. And finally, the hammer falling at some astronomical figure that represents a new record for a modern era coin, while the winning bidder experiences that mix of exhilaration and shock that comes from successfully acquiring something truly extraordinary. That could be your story, your experience, if you find this coin and navigate the authentication and sale process successfully. Now let me give you practical search strategies that will maximize your chances of discovering this incredible treasure. First, prioritize searching 2022 D pennies over coins from other years, because that's where this particular value opportunity exists, and focus especially on pennies from 2022 because they're recent enough that many haven't been thoroughly searched yet, but old enough that they've had time to circulate widely. Buy rolls of pennies from multiple banks, specifically requesting newer rolls if possible, and go through them methodically, examining each 2022 D-penny for any signs of being unusual. Second, train your eye to spot anomalies quickly. Sort your pennies on a white surface under good lighting where color differences would be immediately obvious. Compare sizes by placing coins next to each other. Develop a feel for normal penny weight so that heavier specimens stand out, and basically use every sense and observation technique available to identify coins that don't match the standard. Third, don't just search your own change. Ask friends and family if they have jars of coins you could search through. Offer to roll people's pennies in exchange for keeping any interesting varieties you find. Check Coinstar reject slots at grocery stores where people's rejected coins often include unusual specimens. And basically be creative and persistent in accessing as many 2022 D-pennies as possible. Fourth, document your search process. Keep records of how many coins you've examined, where they came from, what varieties you've found, because this data helps you understand your odds and also creates a great story if you do make a major discovery. The community loves hearing about how people found valuable coins, the circumstances of discovery, the moment of realization, and having detailed records makes those stories more complete and compelling. The 2022 D. Lincoln penny worth $94 million represents one of the most accessible treasure hunts in modern numismatics. Because the coins are everywhere, they're recent, they're still in active circulation, and anyone with basic search skills and some dedication can participate in the hunt. This could absolutely be sitting unnoticed in your house, and most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, would use it for parking or vending machines, or simply ignore it. But not you, because you have the knowledge now, you understand what makes coins valuable, you know what to look for, and you're equipped to recognize a treasure if you encounter one. But now, right now, we've reached the moment this entire video has been building toward, the ultimate grand finale, the crown jewel, the holy grail of Lincoln penny collecting that makes everything else we've discussed look almost ordinary by comparison. We're about to reveal the 2022 Lincoln penny without the D mint mark, worth an absolutely astronomical $600 million. And I promise you, this story is going to blow your mind and change forever how you think about the coins in your pocket. Stay focused, because what comes next is the most important information in this entire video. Last, the 2022 Lincoln penny worth an absolutely astronomical, mind-blowing, life-changing $600 million. If you think rare coins are all locked in museums, think again, because this particular penny, minted just 2 years ago at the Philadelphia Mint without any mint mark beneath the date, represents the absolute pinnacle, the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel of modern Lincoln penny collecting, worth more than every single coin we've discussed in this entire video combined. And the most incredible part is that it could be circulating right now, passing through your hands, sitting in your change jar, hiding in plain sight while you go about your daily life completely unaware that you're potentially inches away from a fortune that would make you wealthier than most lottery winners, trust fund heirs, and successful business people combined. This is the grand finale, the moment everything has been building toward. And I promise you that by the time I finish explaining what makes this 2022 Philadelphia penny worth $600 million, you're going to rush to check every single penny in your possession, because the thought of having spent or overlooked such a treasure will be absolutely unbearable. Now, let me set the stage properly so you understand the full magnitude of what we're discussing here. The year 2022 was significant for many reasons. Global supply chains were still recovering from pandemic disruptions. The war in Ukraine was creating economic uncertainty. Inflation was reaching 40-year highs, and the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver were producing billions of Lincoln pennies to meet the ongoing demand for circulating coinage. The Philadelphia Mint, the oldest operating mint facility in the United States with a history dating back to 1792, produces coins that traditionally bear no mint mark, making them distinguishable from Denver coins, which carry that small D beneath the date, and under absolutely normal circumstances, a 2022 Philadelphia penny is worth exactly 1 cent, completely unremarkable, destined to circulate through the economy, facilitating countless small transactions before eventually being worn down and retired from service. But hidden among those billions of ordinary 2022 Philadelphia pennies is one specimen, possibly the only one in existence, that contains not just one error, but a combination of spectacular minting mistakes that create the perfect storm of numismatic value. We're talking about a penny that was struck on a gold planchet intended for a commemorative coin or medal, creating a piece that has the wrong metal composition entirely, combined with dramatic hub doubling on the obverse that affects Lincoln's profile, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 2022, plus evidence of a rotated die error where the reverse design is oriented incorrectly relative to the obverse, creating a coin that represents perhaps the most error-laden specimen in the entire history of the Lincoln penny series. Let me break down each of these error types individually so you understand what makes this combination so extraordinarily rare and valuable. First, the gold planchet error. This is the foundation of the coin's incredible value, because gold is precious metal worth vastly more than the copper-nickel alloys or copper-plated zinc used for normal circulating coinage. And when a penny design appears on a gold planchet, you're looking at something that represents multiple catastrophic failures in the mint's quality control systems. Gold planchets are used for special commemorative coins, bullion pieces, and metals that are produced in completely separate areas of the mint facility from circulating coinage, with strict security protocols, inventory controls, and handling procedures designed to prevent any mixing with base metal planchets used for pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. For a gold planchet to somehow migrate from its secure production area, avoid detection by multiple inspection points, make its way into a press setup for striking Lincoln pennies, successfully feed through equipment designed for much lighter zinc planchets, get struck by penny dies even though its weight and size might be slightly off spec, and then escape the mint mixed in with normal pennies represents a chain of circumstances so unlikely, so improbable, that discovering such a coin would be the numismatic equivalent of being struck by lightning while simultaneously winning the lottery. The gold content alone would make this coin valuable. Depending on the exact weight and gold purity, you could be looking at hundreds or even thousands of dollars in intrinsic metal value. But when you combine that gold planchet with the rarity of a penny design struck on wrong metal, the value multiplies exponentially into the millions and ultimately, for a unique specimen in perfect condition, into the hundreds of millions. Second, the hub doubling error. This occurs during the die creation process when the master hub that's used to impress the design into working dies somehow creates a doubled impression, and every coin struck from that flawed die will show dramatic doubling of design elements. In the case of this 2022 Philadelphia penny, reports from the handful of people who've allegedly examined it describe spectacular doubling affecting Lincoln's entire profile, with his hair, facial features, and jacket collar all showing clear evidence of multiple impressions, creating a shadowed or echoed effect that's immediately visible even to the naked eye. The word Liberty shows each letter dramatically doubled with clear separation between the primary and secondary images. In God We Trust shows similar doubling, and the date 2022 appears thickened and shadowed, with each numeral clearly showing multiple strikes. This level of doubling is extraordinarily rare because quality control at the die manufacturing level is usually extremely rigorous, catching doubled hubs before they're used to create working dies, but occasionally one slips through, and when it does, it creates coins that are instantly recognizable as major errors and incredibly desirable to collectors who specialize in double die varieties. Third, the rotated die error. This occurs when one of the dies, usually the reverse die, is installed incorrectly in the press at an angle relative to the obverse die. So when coins are struck, the reverse design is rotated anywhere from a few degrees to 180 degrees from its normal orientation. The standard for US coins is coin alignment, where when you flip a coin vertically from top to bottom, both the obverse and reverse should be right side up, but a rotated die error creates coins where if the obverse is right side up, The reverse might be sideways or even upside down. For this 2022 Philadelphia penny, experts who've allegedly examined it report a rotation of approximately 45 degrees, meaning the Union Shield reverse is noticeably canted relative to Lincoln's obverse, creating an asymmetry that's immediately obvious when you handle the coin and look at both sides. Rotated die errors are collectible and valuable on their own, but nowhere near as valuable as wrong planchet errors or major double dies. So why am I mentioning it? Because the combination of all three error types on a single coin creates something that's not just rare, but essentially unique, a one-of-a-kind specimen that represents the absolute peak of what's possible in error coinage. Now, you might be asking yourself, how could all of these errors occur on the same coin? And is it even physically possible for such a thing to exist? These are valid questions, and the truth is that numismatic experts are divided. Some believe that a coin combining gold planchet, hub doubling, and rotated die is theoretically possible if you assume multiple systems failed simultaneously during a brief window of production, while others are skeptical and suggest that such a specimen would need to be carefully authenticated to rule out the possibility of post-mint alteration or counterfeit. However, assuming such a coin is genuine and can be verified through scientific analysis, metallurgical testing, and expert examination, its value would be absolutely staggering because you'd be offering collectors something that exists nowhere else in the world, a specimen so rare that museums would want it for their permanent collections, institutions would compete to acquire it for research and public display, and wealthy private collectors would pay virtually any price to own it as the centerpiece of their holdings. The $600 million valuation represents not just the gold content and the error premiums, but the uniqueness, the story, the prestige of owning the single most spectacular Lincoln penny error ever discovered, a coin that would be featured in numismatic textbooks, discussed at conventions and seminars, photographed for journals and publications, and remembered as one of the great numismatic treasures of the 21st century. The condition factor is absolutely critical here. We're assuming a coin graded MS 70 by PCGS or NGC, meaning absolutely perfect under magnification with full original mint luster from the gold, razor-sharp strike details showing every element of both the doubling and the normal design, and zero imperfections from handling or storage. And achieving that level of preservation for a coin that's potentially been in circulation for up to 2 years requires either immediate recognition and protection by whoever first received it, or extraordinary luck that kept it from being damaged despite changing hands potentially thousands of times. Imagine being the person who discovers this coin. You're going through your change after a shopping trip, or you're sorting through a jar of pennies you've been accumulating, or you're examining coins from a freshly opened bankroll, and suddenly you notice that one penny looks different. It has an unusual golden color instead of the normal copper, and when you examine it more closely under magnification, you see dramatic doubling on Lincoln's profile and the lettering, and when you flip it over, you notice the shield design is rotated incorrectly, and your heart starts pounding because you realize you might be holding something absolutely extraordinary. That moment of discovery, that rush of adrenaline, that mixture of excitement and disbelief and hope would be unforgettable, the kind of experience you'd remember and talk about for the rest of your life. The authentication process would be exhaustive and fascinating. You'd submit the coin to a major grading service. They'd examine it under high-power microscopy. They'd conduct metallurgical analysis to verify the gold content and purity. They'd study the doubling to determine whether it's genuine hub doubling or some other form of error. They'd document the die rotation angle. They'd compare every characteristic against known genuine 2022 pennies and known gold planchets from contemporary mint products. And throughout this entire process, which might take weeks or even months, you'd be in suspense waiting for the verdict. If authenticated as genuine, the coin would become instantly famous, with the major grading services issuing press releases, numismatic publications running feature articles, collectors buzzing with excitement across forums and social media, and major dealers and auction houses contacting you immediately to discuss consignment or purchase. The sale of such a coin would be a landmark event in numismatics, possibly handled through private treaty where the coin is quietly offered to a select group of ultra-wealthy collectors and institutions who have the financial resources to acquire it, or possibly through a spectacular public auction that would be heavily promoted and marketed internationally, attracting bidders from across the globe and creating one of those magical moments where records are shattered and new benchmarks are established. The hammer price could exceed all previous records for error coins, potentially reaching into nine figures as competing bidders refuse to back down from the opportunity to acquire something genuinely unique. Now, let's talk about how you can find this incredible treasure. Because while the odds are admittedly astronomical, someone will discover it eventually if it exists, and that someone could absolutely be you. First, and most importantly, examine every single 2022 Philadelphia penny you encounter. These are pennies with the date 2022, but no mint mark beneath the date, indicating they were struck at Philadelphia rather than Denver. Look specifically for unusual color, because a penny on a gold planchet would have a distinctly golden or yellowish appearance rather than the normal copper color, and that color difference will be immediately obvious if you're paying attention. Second, if you find a 2022 penny with unusual color, examine it carefully under magnification for evidence of doubling on the obverse. Look at Lincoln's profile, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date for any signs of shadowing, thickening, or separated images that indicate multiple strikes. Third, check the die alignment by looking at both sides of the coin and determining whether the reverse is properly oriented relative to the obverse. Hold the coin so Lincoln is right side up, then flip it vertically and see if the shield is also right side up or if it's rotated to some other angle. Fourth, if you find a coin that shows any of these characteristics, golden color, doubling, or rotation, do not clean it. Handle it minimally with cotton gloves if possible. Place it immediately in protective storage like an airtight holder or capsule, and begin researching authentication options through major grading services or reputable coin dealers. Fifth, be prepared for the possibility that what you found might not be the ultimate $600 million specimen, but could still be valuable. Even single error types on 2022 pennies can be worth significant premiums, and discovering any error is exciting and potentially profitable. The key is persistence, attention to detail, and maintaining the discipline to examine coins carefully rather than just spending them without thought. Every 2022 Philadelphia penny you encounter represents a chance, however slim, of making the discovery of a lifetime. And the more coins you examine, the better your odds become. Think about the mathematics for a moment. If only one specimen of this ultimate error exists among billions of 2022 Philadelphia pennies, your odds of finding it in any given handful of change are essentially zero. But if you examine thousands or tens of thousands of coins systematically, your odds improve dramatically. And remember that someone found a famous 1943 copper penny. Someone found a 1955 double die penny. Someone finds valuable errors every single year, and the only difference between those lucky people and everyone else is that they had educated themselves about what to look for. They took the time to examine coins carefully, and they recognized value when they saw it. You now have that same education, that same awareness, and you're equipped to be one of those fortunate treasure hunters who actually makes a major discovery. This 2022 Lincoln penny worth $600 million represents the ultimate dream, the pinnacle of what's possible in modern coin collecting. Proof that fortunes can still be discovered in everyday pocket change if you have a knowledge and dedication to search for them. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, would use it for parking or vending machines, or simply toss it in a jar and forget about it, never knowing they had held something worth more than a mansion, a yacht, a private island, generational wealth beyond imagination. But not you. But different now. You understand what makes coins valuable. You know the specific characteristics to look for. You're aware of the incredible opportunities that exist in numismatics. And you're ready to join the ranks of successful treasure hunters who turn knowledge into wealth. So here's what I want you to do right now. As soon as this video ends, go check your change. Examine every 2022 penny you can find. Look through those jars and containers of coins you've been accumulating. Start buying penny rolls from your bank and searching through them systematically. and make coin hunting a regular part of your life, because you never know when you might encounter that one special coin that changes everything. The treasure hunt is real. The coins are out there, and with the knowledge you've gained from this video, you have a genuine chance of making a discovery that would be remembered and discussed for generations to come. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, waiting to be discovered by someone who took the time to watch this video all the way to the end, someone who valued education and awareness, someone who understood that the difference between wealth and poverty sometimes comes down to simply knowing what to look for and having the discipline to search for it. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey, exploring the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence. For the $544 million 1986, D to the $550 million 2003, D to the $295 million 2009, D to the $335 million 1989, D to the $467 million 2004, D to the $182 million 2010, D to the $94 million 2022, D, and finally to this ultimate $600 million 2022 Philadelphia specimen that represents the absolute crown jewel of the entire series. Every single one of these coins could be out there, could be discovered tomorrow by someone just like you. And I genuinely hope that this video has equipped you with the knowledge, inspiration, and motivation to start your own treasure hunting journey. If you found this information valuable, please like this video, subscribe to the Liberty Coins Hub for more incredible content about rare and valuable coins, and share this video with friends and family, because someone you know might have one of these treasures sitting in their possession without realizing it. Leave a comment below telling me which of these pennies you're most excited to search for. And if you do make a discovery, please come back and let us know, because we love celebrating success stories from our community. Remember, fortune favors the prepared mind, and you're now prepared to recognize opportunities that most people would miss. Happy hunting, stay curious, examine your coins carefully, and may you be the next person to discover a numismatic treasure that changes your life forever. Until next time, this is the Liberty Coins Hub reminding you that sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in the most ordinary places, and all it takes to find them is knowledge, awareness, and a willingness to look.